Today I'm going to be replacing on my 2015 Harley Davidson Ultra Limited Low the thermostat for the water cooling system. Part number 267000018 as an alpha. This one's supposed to be the latest one, the 1A, A as an alpha, that superseded the 01. I've been having some issues with the water cooling system since last summer, and the problem that I'm getting right now is that when the bike comes to a certain temperature, I get a fault light, engine light and a coolant light fault, and that light stays on for 2-3 miles until the light goes out. At this point, I'm thinking that the problem that I'm having right now is the thermostat. It's not opening, where it's supposed to open, and that's why I'm getting the fault on the bike. The water pump has been changed already, which it was faulty last year. I changed the sensor, and that was the first thing that I changed. And so far, the only thing left to change is the thermostat. Obviously, when I changed the water pump, or when Harley changed the water pump, it was because the water pump was shorting internally, and it was blowing the fuse for the water pump. But on this case, it's different. The fans are working, the water pump is working fine. The only thing is, when the temperature rises, I get a light, and the light stays there for quite a few miles until the light goes away and doesn't come back ever again until water temperature drops down, which is when you stop and take a break and you get back on the bike. So my prediction is the thermostat is sticking internally. I know my thermostat is on one of the unions here in the bottom. It was kind of leaking, not leaking, but you could see that it gets wet. And what I did back in last year, I put some a sealant around. And when they changed the water pump at the dealer, I was hoping that the technician at the Harley dealer was gonna replace the thermostat, obviously, because he would see that thermostat had a kind of a leak or getting wet around. But at the end, they only ended up changing the water pump, and I mean, that was good enough for me, because obviously Harley Davidson paying for the water pump at no cost, even though my bike warranty was already expired. So that was fine with me. If I could have saved $500, which easily would have cost me out of my pocket to change the water pump, so that was enough for me. Thermostat, it cost me about, I think it was $45, so it's okay. I could deal with it, I could live with it. I have a video on my channel that I talk about from last year when I'm having problems, and kind of like a reference type of thing for troubleshooting the water system, the water cooling system on the bike. So far I haven't found anything on YouTube related to the thermostat. I don't know if anybody had any issue with the thermostat, but I'm thinking that on my situation, I'm having issues with the thermostat myself. So I'm gonna go change it, and hopefully this will take care of the fault light coming on the on my dashboard. We'll see. Okay, we got the thermostat, then we got we need 2 of those clamps, and we got the crimper. Stop taking the cover. That's where your water pump and your thermostat goes. Started taking this clamp. This is the clamp that comes from the reservoir, and there's 2 of these clamps. They are reusable. this is your other clamp that is coming from the engine. This clamp is not reusable. This is one-time use type of clamp. There's two of these clamps, that we're gonna need, and there's the other one. That's the other clamp that's coming from the water pump. Those clamps, they have a little nipple, and you use the flat screwdriver to kind of push the nipple away, and eventually you can lift up the rest of the clamp and it will give up. At this point, I'm starting to remove the bolt that holds the actual thermostat to the frame or to the engine, whatever you call them. At this point, I start disconnecting the lines, starting with the upper line, the one that comes from the left radiator, and start working my way out with the line that comes from the water pump. I think this was the only kind of a little more complicated part, of the whole removal and installation. The actual removal, disconnecting the lines. The lines, they stick with the heat, so the beginning is kind of the starting point of removing the line. That's what kind of have to be careful, but eventually they will come out. At this point, I put the two new clamps on it, and I start working my way connecting the thermostat to the lines. At this point, I start putting back the two clamps that are reusable. At this point, I work my way to start crimping the two clamps that I purchased at the dealer. This was my first time actually using this type of crimper. I had never used it before, and it worked out pretty good. I bought this crimper on eBay for $30, but I think you could find it on Lowe's or Home Depot for $50 or $45. That's the final crimp. At this point, I start securing the thermostat with the bolt. I put some Loctite on it just to make sure it stays tight. At this point, that's when I start adding coolant into the system by turning the fan and the water pump on and let the system bleed. This is the process that you do manually if you don't have the special, I think it's a pump. This is how you do it manually. with the bike off and running the pumps and running the fans and bleeding the system. At this point, I rode the bike around 50 miles, brought it back, did a leak check, didn't find no leaks. So far, everything looks good. Thank you for watching, guys, and I hope that my video helped you as a reference in your troubleshooting with your bike.